Hey guys, welcome to the Indating Podcast, sponsored by Events and Adventures. I'm Marco, I'm the founder of Events and Adventures, and today we're going to be talking to Curtis, our International Travel Director, about some of the new trips we have. In fact, an Iceland trip that just came live today. And for those of you that don't know, Events and Adventures, we're a social club. We do 30 or 40 events in each of our 15 cities every month, and we do a lot of world travel. We create it for ourselves. We don't grab things off the internet and show them. We have a company that works with us, and they're exclusive for our members. So if you're just checking out the club, I hope you enjoy this, and it tells you a little bit about how we do our trips. And if you're already a member watching this, then go ahead and sign up for the Iceland trip. Okay, Curtis, take it away. Tell me about Iceland. Now, I've always heard the joke that Iceland isn't icy and Greenland isn't green. You've been there. Tell me the truth.
It is very true that those two names do seem to be a little bit reversed. Greenland is pretty darn cold, and it is pretty much icy all the time. Iceland does get some ice. We're going there during the summer to really get the best out of Iceland. It is called the land of ice and fire because of the beautiful volcanoes they have there, which certainly has created a lot of the island itself, and all the geothermal hot springs that are there that are really amazing to enjoy. In fact, in our particular trip, while you have just done an international flight to get to Iceland, we go from the airport after that uncomfortable long flight straight to one of the best thermal spas that they have in Iceland. It's the Blue Lagoon. And we go there and we get to soak and relax after that long flight before even as our start to our trip. It's a really good experience.
Nice. I remember Reykjavik from the SALT talks, the talks with Reagan and Russia back in the day. Do we get to go to Reykjavik?
Absolutely. Reykjavik is the capital, and it's really the jumping off spot for anybody coming to Iceland. The airport is rather near Reykjavik, so it's serving that space. And then there's so much more beauty in Iceland. Again, it's got a volcanic background, so there's all kinds of beautiful volcanic displays, both from lava fields and stunning black beaches, which is a result of the volcanic rock that gets down to the shore and it is broken up. And just to see this beautiful black beaches along the ocean, and sometimes you'll see ice along the shore, and it's called the Diamond Beach because with the beautiful black beach rocks, and then you see the bits of ice, it looks like a diamond coast.
Wow! So I've been on black sand beaches on the Big Island of Hawaii. Obviously the same reason. And I've flown over the volcanoes there. I'm sure in Iceland, it's probably no sun tanning there. But so how is it different than like, you've probably been to Hawaii, right? And you've flown over the volcanoes. Do we have that option? Do we get to fly over in a helicopter, or are we just standing by them? How does that work?
We are going to be doing some activities in and around them, but unlike Hawaii, Iceland doesn't really have a lot of the helicopter kind of tour programs. I'm sure there is a program out there, but it's really not the same as the Hawaiian Islands. Here, there are some volcanic areas that we get to explore through. There's the lava fields and also that amazing style of volcanic rock that is in these columns, and it almost looks like it was kind of man-made. You see that in Ireland and Scotland as well, these columns of hexagonal style of rock.
That's not what it's just all volcanic rock, kind of.
It is. It's a basalt columns, but they almost look like they were created by man in a sense. It's a beautiful aspect. Those are prevalent on the island as well, and there's also a lot of unique things that are just Iceland. Like the Iceland horses are much more stout. They have a little bit longer manes, and they're just a really stunning horse. There is opportunities to experience that. There's also the puffins, which is a type of bird that is very iconic for Iceland. We're going to have an opportunity to see their habitat on one of the small islands that is attached to Iceland that we're actually spending some time on.
Nice.
There's the this really interesting kind of mysterious aspect that we're doing on the trip, and it's in this case it's called the Caves of Hella. The town of Hella has these caves, and the origin of the caves is a little unique because they have been using them for such a long time, and in the early days they were using them to place their livestock in during the winter. But because they've been using them so long, it's obscured their actual origin. And they don't know if it's from the Vikings that came over and they created these caves, or if they were more caves created through the volcanic process, or just what. We get to tour those as well.
Like, you and I have been at the 8 caves in Washington that are a volcanic blowhole there by Mount St. Helens, which is absolutely amazing. If you're a Seattle member, you should definitely go take that trip with us. So do they know if those horses were brought over by the Vikings or were they brought later?
That's a good question. I would think that they've got some kind of European history to them, but it's something I guess I have to add to my list.
Well, I know that, we have a different person and one of our staff, one of our managers going on each of the trips to help everything along. Are you doing this Iceland trip?
I am actually doing the trip right before that, so I won't be I won't be the host on that particular trip.
Okay, well, you have to ask. No, I'll just Google it. I'll just Google where the hell those horses come from.
Yeah,
and we'll get it figured out. But why don't you show the event for the members who are going, hey, how about what's the event actually look like? Throw it up there and share the screen, and let's take a look at it real quick so people can see exactly what we're doing day by day.
Okay, so our program, we do start off. Most of our international trips we'll meet at a gateway airport here in the U.S. where everybody meets there, and then we travel as a group over to our destination and back. And in this case, we're starting out of Newark Airport, just out in Newark, New Jersey. So it's just off from JFK and some of the other major airports. So we start there on the 8th of August. Fly into Reykjavik, and there's a good shot of this is actually our E&A group a couple of years back when we went directly to the Blue Lagoon after getting off the plane. We do have a group dinner that evening to kind of celebrate our experience landing into Reykjavik. There's a shot of our property that we're staying at.
That looks like a hotel in Iceland. Seriously.
It does have that effect. I mean, in one thing about the experience with traveling around the world is you kind of get a glance of a property and you can get an idea of what part of the world that's in just by the architecture.
Yep. There's actually a game about that. If you guys know what that game is, put a comment in here. My son plays it all the time where they show you just a little bit of a country and you have to decide where it's at. Curtis, you would be good at that game. I will send a copy of that game to you because you would love it.
That sounds exciting. The following day we'll end up doing what is called the Golden Circle. It's the Golden Circle because it has it's rather near Reykjavik, and it has a number of really fascinating things to experience. So the first photo here, you can see this jagged valley right here, and it looks like there's a little space between it. That's actually where the two continents come together. Iceland sits on top of both the European continent and the American continent, and that's where these two continents come together. And you can walk right in that green little valley there. It's a really fun little experience.
A spot where you can stand and be on both continents at once. There's got to be a spot, right?
Well, actually, we do have both this activity here, and towards the end of the trip, there is a bridge that you can get on that you can walk across that puts you right in between those two.
Sweet.
Of course, Iceland does have tons of geysers and natural springs. we're going to be checking out some of the geysers there. If I'm not mistaken, the term geyser actually does come from Iceland, and in Icelandic, it just means an explosion of hot water kind of thing.
Big water thing. Yeah.
You cannot enjoy Iceland without the stunning waterfalls that they have around there. And this is one of their more famous ones. The flow there from multiple different angles coming into the main river is just really stunning.
You know what? We create so much art in the world, and yet water falling off a cliff and falling through in the green and stuff, that is some of the most beautiful things in the world. You just can't create it as beautiful as nature seems to make it sometimes.
Yeah, that is so true. There is so much natural beauty that from one continent to another in different locations. That's a good point there. So we do have some exploring that not only is above ground but below ground here with the caves of Hela. These caves are really fascinating because their origin story, where they actually were first used or built, is really not entirely clear. They believe that it very likely is from the Vikings coming across, but there is some carvings in some of the caves that do have some of the Old Norse markings and such. But they're really not certain. And they, for centuries, they've also used these caves to bring their livestock in during the harsh winters and use it in essence like a giant barn. But sure. They're so beautiful. They even have weddings inside these caves.
Nice.
So we do have a number of interesting properties, unlike some trips where you stay in one location and then you kind of spoke out there and come back. We travel around Iceland in this. Here's another property that we're staying at. Of course, many of the properties that we're at will have hot tubs or saunas that will be available during the stay as well. Speaking of waterfalls,
that was like Snoqualmie Falls, doesn't it?
It does look kind of like that. I think with Snoqualmie Falls, there's a beautiful lodge nearby, and you're not that far from.
So much like it. If the lodge was up there on the left, you could have fooled me. Wow.
And then there are waterfalls that we'll be able to get in and go behind. And here's some of that rock formation that I was talking about earlier. It's just a beautiful form of rock formation that almost looks like it was man-made. It's very these columns of rock.
I love the juxtaposition of the sharpness with the smoothness. That's amazing.
Yeah, it is really quite stunning. And look at that beautiful black beach. Yeah, that is lava rock, pumice of that since the island is so volcanic and has so much to give in that sense. I really like that shot.
Nice. Yeah, it's a heart.
Yeah.
They made it look like a heart.
We've got some amazing picturesque little towns that we get to experience in and around the area. We do end up taking a ferry from the main island of Iceland over to the Westland Islands to explore. This shot of the island is probably 90% of the island. So it's this secondary island that we go to is just a little spot. It's really quite amazing. They do have some older Viking settlements that we get to explore and check out. Here's a shot of the puffin.
New Zealand.
Sorry?
This is so like New Zealand. Remember, you have both been in New Zealand, and I mean, literally, that could be a hobbit hole almost if you made it around.
It does have a kind of a New Zealand aspect to it, I suppose. Yeah.
Crazy.
There is some interesting formation. Here's a elephant rock formation, and it really kind of looks like the head of an elephant putting its trunk right into the water. That one's really kind of amazing. People have thought it was carved or formed for it, but it's all natural. There is a beluga whale sanctuary that we'll be able to get to check out as well. some of the most stunning whales out there. You're just the mixture between such a pale animal in deep blue sea. It's a really beautiful contrast. We make our way back to the mainland, check out some other really remarkable and historic spaces. Of course, you're going to see tons of geysers and geothermal activities. Here is that bridge that we get to walk on. You can walk underneath it, or you can walk across it and stop in the center. But this is going to put you between the two continents, between the European plate and the North American plate.
That's cool. That's cool.
And then we make our way back in to Reykjavik again. You've got a complete free day, and we do try to place these free days at perfect timings on the trip. You've already had a good chunk of time in Iceland. You've gotten an idea of some things that might be of interest for you. And then between our local guides, which we have on every single trip, and our E&A host, which is really kind of a concierge for you, between the two of them, they can help you with ideas or suggestions of what to do during your free day, point you in the directions of what you would like to do.
Nice.
The Icelandic hot dog is kind of one of those things where you're going to get teased if you go to Iceland, and particularly Reykjavik, and don't get one. They're really quite a famous institution there.
Nice. Tell me the name of that place.
Oh gosh, I'd love to try to pronounce that one. Oh yeah. There is a lot to do there, and as you pointed out with waterfalls, there is a ton of stunning, beautiful waterfalls. This one is called the Children's Waterfall, and there is some kind of macabre, sad story behind the titling of it, but the water is just beautiful. And we did say again?
Dead children, but the water's beautiful. One of those stories, isn't it?
It is kind of one of the grim fairy tales kind of stories on those.
That's great.
We did start off the trip with some thermal hot baths, thermal hot springs, and we end them as well. So this is kind of the setting looking in the time frame we're going to be there in August. But I did throw in this shot of when our group was there in February one year. And that's actually me sitting in those exact same pools in February.
Much.
And then we have an amazing dinner for our farewell dinner planned. There is a little bit of a special presentation that I'm kind of keeping as a secret about what we're going to be doing for that final farewell dinner. I can just hint and let people know that it is going to be a fun experience to enjoy that final farewell dinner.
There you go. So something you probably never thought of asking, if you're a CrossFitter, there are several very famous CrossFitters that won world championship, and Catherine David's daughter is my son's favorite. And I wonder, I'm willing to bet they have a studio right there in Reykjavik. If I was there at a CrossFitter, I want to run by and get one of their shirts. So if you're a CrossFitter and you're going on a trip, let me know. We'll figure it out for you. We'll figure out where they are. Maybe you can do a workout in Iceland.
Not just that, but Iceland is definitely a country for the outdoors person. There is just so much to do. They really appreciate their geography and getting out in it and exploring it, whether it's the lava fields, checking out some of the more active volcanoes that are there, the hiking experiences, running, and of course, soaking as well.
I'm sure. I mean, if I'm any country I go to, I try to get at least one run in. Just run out there, be in that environment and feel it, and feel how the air is different everywhere you go. They say air is the same, but it's not. When you're in a different country and you're running, the air is different, the land, everything is different, and things kind of slow down if you go take a run by yourself, completely by yourself, in another country, someplace where you're not going to get killed, of course. There's some places you wouldn't want to take that run, but Iceland, I'm sure, it would be, I would love that, especially August, right? August, you can do that run. In January, not so much.
Well, and I think people travel for different reasons, and I love that about travel. You're talking about a fun experience about getting out and doing a little running in foreign countries. I do enjoy the twilight time, probably early evening, and taking a solo walk in a city or space and just seeing what that city has to offer, seeing whether it is down at the harbor or in a major square of a city, or checking out the theater aspect of a particular, just walking around a city, whether it's the time of year, it can still be an amazing experience to kind of breathe that in.
Yeah. So I wonder, you and I grew up in Seattle. For people who don't know, Curtis has been with the company about 15 years, and he and I actually grew up within a few miles of each other. Our schools were crosstown rivals in Lacey, Washington area. But, I remember going to drive-in when I was a kid in August. Sun doesn't go down till 10, right? Driving doesn't start till 10. How late is it going to be in August when the sun goes down in Iceland?
We are going to have a lot more sunlight in there. It's not so far south that we end up having 22 hours of daylight or something like that, but we will have significantly more daylight on that trip. We did a number of years ago, as that one photo showed you, we did go there in February, and people ask, why would you go to Iceland in February? Well, we went there for the Aurora Borealis, and while we were able to experience that, we did have a lot less sunlight during that time. So this is a great opportunity to go to a country where you get a lot more daylight and can spend more time out and about and exploring it.
Yeah, well, here it showed me today. Today's sunrise is at 10:30 and down at 5. So I imagine it's going to be some late nights, but that's great, right? Because you can get out, you can stay out, and for a few days, you can really get a lot done when you have, but then once the sun goes down, you got to go home and go to bed. Right?
Absolutely.
6 hours. I think when I'm traveling, I try to get at least 6 hours of sleep, 7 hours of sleep every night.
And with a country that is used to having these swings, they're going to have hotel rooms that do have blackout curtains. So when it's time for you to want to go to bed, if it's still a little light out, you'll be able to do that, because that's a country that understands that situation.
There you go. That's a wimp way out. No, I'm just kidding. So that's all the stuff for Iceland. If you're just looking at the club, let's talk about events and adventures and travel for a second. For people that might be interested in events and adventures as a whole, and what we do, let me say a little bit first, and then Curtis, I'll let you talk about the travel. Events and Adventures is a private club for singles. As I said earlier, we run 30 or 40 events every month in each of our 15 cities, and you can look on our website to see all those cities. Seattle's one, where Curtis is right now. Tampa is another one where I'm at. And we have Vancouver, Canada is one Canadian club right now. We'll get to Toronto here pretty soon. And you have to be single to be a member. We do interview everybody before they join, just for safety and security, and to make sure, that the events are the kind of events you want to be at, and that everybody's worth meeting, and, no nut jobs or anything. We screen for felonies, things like that. So when you get in a car, you can hop in a carpool. You don't have to worry about who you are hopping in the car with. And, but it's a lot of fun, and our travel is custom made just for us. As I mentioned earlier, there's a company called Eric's Adventures that does our trips for us, and they are only for us. And we'll limit it to like max one bus load usually, so we can all be together. How do you think our travel is different than other travel you've done in your life, Curtis? What do we do that's special? What do we do that's different? What do we do that would make it worth somebody joining, maybe just to do the travel with us? Because I know some people do.
Yeah, there certainly are some of our members who just are travel bugs, and they really love our program. There are a number of different things that make us stand out. And the first one is something that might sound obvious, but we don't do cookie cutter trips off that are available in the world and just slap our name on it. I couldn't do that if I wanted to, because as an activities club for singles, the first thing those standard kind of programs ask us is, oh, you're taking 22 people, so that's 11 rooms with 2 people in each bed. We're an activities club for singles. We have a bed per person. And that means from the ground up, I get to create and work with our providers to put on unique, special, personalized trips for us. And that is a wonderful place to start from because we get to look at each different country we're going to figure out what is fun and exciting and interesting. When you go to Paris, you certainly want to see the Eiffel Tower, but you don't want every step of your experience to be some tourist hotspot and that's all. You want to have the more personalized area and background. So that's the number one thing.
Yeah, I know we have a lot of members that have been, like I interviewed one woman who'd been to 250 countries and she joined and she'd never been to South America with us. She'd been Europe and United States based. And to be able to go to Argentina, all that stuff was really something she was really excited about. And I know that she checked out our prices for our trips versus what she was doing. And she was knowledgeable. And if our prices weren't good, she wouldn't have come with us. She's one of the people who says, I'll travel myself. She was trying to get a complete set. She was trying to make it to every single country. And she was getting pretty close.
Well, we've certainly traveled the world and hit a lot of places. We've hit every continent on the globe, including Antarctica. Some people will argue with you that instead of 7 continents, there's 8. New Zealand and New Caledonia allegedly are their own continent. We've covered those as well. We've been to New Zealand, so we've got that in the bag. But in addition to simply doing our own custom trips, there's another aspect that I think is really important for us. Often when you go on an international trip, you're sent to that place, you arrive in that foreign country, and you may have a 1-800 number for the organization that's putting it together, but that's all you have, and you've got that local guide. With us, you have an E&A staff person, one of our trip hosts that's with you when we leave the U.S. They're with you through that trip, and even if you are one of those folks who I'm already going to be in that country or I'm going to fly over myself, once you're there, you're not, if there's an issue or a concern, you're not having to call a 1-800 number to somebody in a different time zone and explain an issue. You've got our staff right there taking care of it. And I can tell you, after being on a number of these trips for the last almost 2 decades, we often are finding those little issues and dealing with them way before our members have even seen that there was an issue and a concern, because we're able to realize, oh, that transportation is now running a little bit late. We're going to put this in place so that we can enjoy this experience while we're waiting for that, and it's seamless.
Yeah, I do agree. Some people underestimate the value of us doing trips for 20 years, and some of the same ones, right? We'll do Peru, Machu Picchu over and over again, and we make it better each time. You know, we'll do the pyramids, we'll do Kenya, we'll do different parts of the world that people want to go to, and we're able to learn from each trip and make them better. But by the way, if you are dating someone seriously in the club, we can get you your own room. So it's not necessarily one person, one bed all the time. But we do have single and double occupancy. So there are people, I know there's women, they'll be like, we'll go together and we'll save some money, and they'll have their own beds in a room. And other people, like I would be like, I want my own room. Always want my own room. I don't want to share with anybody. And we facilitate both those, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can have a private room if that really is what speaks to you. We do like the idea of a shared room where there's a couple different beds and 2 people. We're not talking a dormitory where you've got 7 people and 7 beds or things like that. But the idea of the club is really to get you out, meeting people, having a fun time, exploring new places and worlds. And in that understanding, it's kind of nice to have that shared room. But there are plenty of folks in the world that would be like, yeah, I get that, but I want to have my own space. Both work.
You know, I think this is true. Tell me if I'm wrong. I think women are more likely to share a room, and dudes are like, nah. If I can afford it, I want my own room.
Well, this might come as a surprise, I suppose, to some, but with traveling around the world, both locations and activities to do, women are usually the first to sign up for anything. They're like, I am excited for this. If it's a Scotch tasting experience with cigars, women are more likely to sign up for that than the guys are. And maybe it's because us guys are contemplating it, going, am I really going to enjoy that? Or I'll get around to doing that. And the women have jumped up and signed up and moved forward on it.
100%. In 38 years of events and adventures being open around the United States and Canada, I saw that too. Women always sign up first. The guys sign up, but we're like, hey, do you have room tonight? We have a tendency to be last second people, right? Maybe we're too busy thinking about Rome. And then it's like, oh, hey, volleyball, let's go. So you're 100% right about that. And I'm not surprised that it happens in travel as well. So, Curtis, tell me a little bit about the trips you've taken. You've been with us 20 years, 30 years, not 30, 20, right? It's like 20 years.
I think I'm coming up on just past my 18th anniversary.
Oh, so hardly any time at all. Yeah, you're right there. Tell me some of the trips you've had, some of the experiences you've had. I mean, what are the coolest places that you've done with the club?
Well, I get that asked a lot from members. What is your favorite place? And I do like to preface that by saying that people travel for different reasons. I like to travel to see new, unique places that may be completely different from my culture. And with that in mind, I may be picking places that are not where other people would pick. But I do like Thailand as an example. With Thailand, you can go to one location, one country, and see amazing bustling city of Bangkok. You can go up into the hills and see some amazing culture and diversity up there. And then you can go to stunning beaches and have an experience all of those in one country. There's
blah blah blah. Yes, travelogue. Blah blah blah. No, I want to hear your experience, personal experiences you've done. Yeah, we know. I want to hear some of the fun things you've actually done yourself. You're like, oh my God, that was one of the best things I ever did.
One of those experiences would be when we were in Egypt. We, of course, are going to see the pyramids, but they can be so swamped with tourism and tour gimmicks and games. What we did is we went to the edge of town at dusk, got a herd of camels, and we rode the camels up into the dunes where we could see the pyramids being lit up at night. And they pulled rugs down and hookahs and lamb and tea. And we just sat there in the dusk watching the pyramids being lit up at night. That was something I will never forget. It was a stunning experience.
That's worth the price of the trip right there, right? Those are the moments you're looking for when you travel. That special thing that maybe not everybody's done, but you look at it and we have those moments in life where you're like, oh, don't forget this. Don't forget this. This is so special. And it sounds like that's one. So do you have another? You've been around for a long time. Give me a couple others. I know I'm calling you out on the spot. So
sure. There is a ton of experiences that I've been fortunate enough to have. Walking into Machu Picchu in Peru, walking into there for first thing in the morning when it's just opening up and being able to see the expanse.
Again?
Sorry.
Just 1 second. We had an internet problem. Start the Machu Picchu again, so I can.
Well, it's certainly stunning to be stepping into Machu Picchu at morning when the space just opens up and being able to see all of the stunning ancient architecture and walk through it without the crowds. That's an impressive experience, and to kind of look at the way everything was built and imagine the original architects, the original builders of that, and just walk through that silently in your head. It's an amazing experience.
You'd be a giant there, right?
Well, you can't tell on the video, but
5 feet tall.
I am 6'5", so I do kind of stand out when we travel. It's funny. We do our monthly Zoom calls for all of our trips. And members get to meet me first, usually on video. And then when they see me at the airport, they're like, wow, we didn't realize you were so tall.
Right. Well, even right now, you're kind of at the bottom of the screen. I wonder if that's a thing that tall people do. They don't want to look so tall. So like slouch down and make themselves look shorter. What do you think?
Good question. Another experience that was a blast was we did Petra. And so if you're an Indiana Jones fan, you might remember coming in through the the cave as it curves around and see Petra right there. But Petra, for most of us here in the U.S., is a singular one space carved program. The Petra itself is huge. It is tons and tons and tons of carved emphasis put into these things. And
Oh,
there's
really? Not just like, yeah, because when I think of Indiana Jones, I think of like this one little hidden place, and it's like that one facade, and that's about it. How big is it really?
it is a city. There is a half amphitheater built there. There is the main building that everyone sees is the treasury. It's called the treasury, and on the far opposite end is the sanctuary. And it is another stunning thing that you have to spend a good hour to walk up these winding paths. Sometimes you could take a donkey up there, and you get to see that amazing carved building as well.
So remind me, that's not Jordan? Where is that?
It is. You got it. You nailed it. It is Jordan.
Yes.
And
Right in there somewhere.
if you're a film buff, the Jordan Desert, the Wadi Rum is what it's called. The Jordan Desert that is near Petra has tons of films being filmed in it all the time. It has a very orange hue to the sand. The Martian with Matt Damon, a number of Star Wars movies and other things were all filmed in that area because it really is unique. The beauty and the atmosphere there is kind of otherworldly, I think is the expression that comes up.
Nice. I love so emphasis on Ephesus. Next time I'm there, I'm gonna have to make sure I catch that. So I've always wanted to do the Israel, Jordan, in that little area, maybe that, and Turkey as a crescent. What we've done that trip, that kind of trip, a few times. Have we done like Turkey, Jordan, Israel? How does that work?
We've done Egypt and Jordan as a combination, and really the key things in that for folks that are considering travel and they really haven't got a lot of travel under their belt, it's pyramids and Petra. That's the key things that people are going to recognize in the Egypt and Jordan trip. And of course, we're far more than that. You get into Cairo, having an opportunity, and you talk about experiences that I've loved in my travels. Being able to walk through one of the oldest markets in the world in Cairo and just window shop and people view is really a fun experience.
Right. Look for the one lamp that works, right?
I did actually pick up a hanging lamp there. Funny story. It had a metal feature and a little glass globe in it. And I brought that home, and years later, the glass globe broke. I ended up going back with the club for another trip there, found the exact same market in this old market, and was able to get a replacement globe. Of course, these are all handmade and all of this, so it's unique that it was able to fit, but it was a good experience.
I'm more dreaming of Genie when I'm looking for the lamp.
Oh, I saw where you were going.
Yeah, so that's amazing. Now, I want you to talk about one of our trips, because there was a very special thing that happened on our Iceland trip, on our Antarctica trip a few years ago, and you were a big part of that. So why don't you talk about that trip real quick and that special day?
Well, I think anybody going to Antarctica is going to have an amazing time. It's not quite a moon launch in the sense that you're going to a place that only a handful of people have gone to, but you are going to a place that very, very few travelers get a chance to go to, and that in itself is pretty impressive. To pop back just a little bit to fill this story in, we had a couple that met on our Dominican Republic trip. And after meeting on that and chatting and talking, they ended up getting engaged on our Cancun trip.
Nice.
And they did say, hey, we've signed up for the Antarctica trip. We want to get married on that, and we would like you to be the officiant. And I got to marry them on Antarctica. And that was such a
I'll
fun
put the picture up. There's a way for me to put. I'll put the picture right up there of you guys during that moment. So
yeah, awesome. I've been lucky. I've actually married 3 or 4 couples now on the trip. And the very first couple, I was not an officiant, and they said, "Curtis, we'd like you to be the officiant." And I said, I'm not even one. And they said, "Don't worry, we've already bought it off the internet. You are one now."
I had to do the same thing, do that little course online to become an officiant. I actually helped a couple of members get married in Sedona, in that like beautiful little church you see if you know Sedona and you're driving through town. It's up on the right, it's up in the hills. It's just like feels like it's part of the rock there. And we had the wedding there. It was absolutely special. And boy, what a responsibility when you're the basically the priest in a wedding. I felt such a responsibility to make sure I gave them the right advice and something they would remember. And what an amazing couple. But obviously we've had hundreds, thousands of weddings in the club. Not that many that actually involve us specifically, right? And we've had a couple in different clubhouses pre-COVID when we still had regular like buildings that we used. But I mean, the last year I was in Seattle, I was invited to 17 weddings, of 16 weddings of members, one other one. And it feels really special to be a part of those and to feel like we're actually a part of changing these people's lives and helping them find the person that's their forever person. I mean, it's humbling. It's humbling. So
we did have a couple when we were in Morocco. They had already decided that this was going to be their last trip with the club because they were going to get married shortly after that. We were in Morocco in the Sahara Desert in this beautiful tented little space that we were in. And they decided, we want to get married a little early and asked me to be the officiant for them right then so they could have a ceremony with the rest of their E&A friends around them and have a little private experience there. We did that one. And then they went home. And I think a week and a half later, they had the big one for the family.
Nice. Yeah, we've had a lot more engagements at events than weddings. Is having the wedding at the event, the mother-in-law is not usually going to be pretty happy about that. I do remember that the couple in Antarctica, they talked about it and they said we want to be as far away from our family as possible. Was why they were in Antarctica.
They weren't getting a lot of wedding crashers showing up to Antarctica to squeeze in on that.
Right? It'd be like, it'll be a cold day in hell when you get married. Well,
and it was truly an experience where sometimes a wedding is for so many other people than the bride and groom. And at that wedding in Antarctica, it was 100% about them. There was no other distractions, nothing else. It was really, really a special experience.
I love it. So let's talk about engagements. I've seen love at first sight so many times. I've seen it when you know what you're looking for. You can literally see the spark when someone you can tell they're like, this is the one right here. And I've seen it a lot of times. And I've been involved with some different engagements and things like that. So what was your favorite engagement that you were a part of or around?
There in Seattle, we had a gentleman who was a host of ours, and on his on the woman he was struck by, it was her first event, and he happened to be the host for that event. I believe it was volleyball. Later he told me at that event he knew that she was the right person for him. And Chris and Emily, absolutely amazing, wonderful people. They have been together for, I'm going to say close to 15 years now or something like that. And they've got a couple beautiful kids, and it's just a great story.
Yeah, I've seen so many of them, and I've seen some actual engagements where they asked, like in San Francisco, we had one where it was a karaoke night. And dude, what was his name? Asian guy. I'm trying to remember his name. He worked with the DJ. So he got her up on a chair and was singing to her. And then the engagement was in the song. And so he sang that he loved her anymore. And she was like, oh, and we have video of it, but it's like an old iPhone. The person was so busy, whatever. You don't get it turned into a good video. It would have been so great. No, absolutely. That was clever. I remember one where it was in Arizona, and he wanted to ask her in a hot air ballooning. And then the day that we were supposed to, the wind was too great, and so we had to cancel it. So we had to wait. So the staff knew he was going to get engaged. And it took like 6 weeks for them to get back up and get another one so we could do it. But when it finally happened, it was absolutely awesome. And, that was a really special one. And there have been so many of them, but I love watching people fall in love at events and adventures. And, it happens all the time.
There was this amazing couple on a trip. I believe it was our Australia-New Zealand trip. They went on the trip. They were both interested in each other, but couldn't talk to each other. And they went I know. They went the entire trip not talking to each other. And at the end of the trip, they started corresponding and realizing that both of them had this paralyzing fear to talk to the other person. They ended up going on one more trip and had such a great time together and got married, and just a stunning, wonderful couple. But it was kind of funny that the first experience they were in each other's space, they were both paralyzed to talk to the other person.
Yeah, isn't that funny? No matter how much game you have, when you find the one, it can be hard. And you're just like, oh my God. My advice to you, though, in that situation is to go ahead and say anything. Just say anything. Because if she's the one, I'm talking from a guy's standpoint of view, if she's the one, no matter what you say, she'll find it funny, clever, interesting. It won't be bad.
I've got an expression for that. That it's content versus contact. Sometimes contact is more important than content. So what you're saying to them is not as important as the fact that you make a contact.
Yeah. And you know what, if you talk to somebody and they think you're just a complete jerk, that wasn't the one, probably. That can change over time. I had a friend where the first time I met her, and she's a friend at the time, I was already married. And I was thinking, oh, that woman's a bitch. She's obnoxious. and she was in a situation where I was in charge. We were doing a big event, and I was just like, woman, get off my back. And then, a couple of years later, we knew her so well and realized how amazing she was. She actually, if we had passed away, she would have been raising our kids for us. So that attitude can change. But most of the time, it's going to be right. If you're in love, it's going to be right pretty much from the beginning. It's not going to be I hate you and then I love you. If it's I hate you and then I love you, that's a really thin line. You go back to I hate you anytime. So I would take that as a red flag in a love relationship if there's a lot of negative vibe going on.
Well, and also traveling with somebody can really show you a lot. It's not quite the playing Monopoly with somebody to determine whether you're compatible. But when you're traveling with someone and seeing how they experience the world in the way that you do, that can really have a really telling experience about how compatible you guys are.
Right. And that's actually a reason to go with us. I've talked to several people when we interview everybody for about an hour before they join Events and Adventures, and they're telling me about their dating life during that time. And I've had several people who were like, yeah, I went on this trip and we broke up on like day 2, but I had to stay with him for the whole next 10 days. And we hated each other for 10 days. Well, at Events and Adventures, you're not going to have to worry about that, right? Because you're with the group. If you were with somebody you break up, that's fine. There's 40, 50 people there. You can spend your time with other people and still enjoy the trip, and you're not stuck just pleasing one person for the whole time. But it is amazing how some people, like my daughter, Rebecca, who's in her 30s now, we went to China, and it was like we were joined at the hip. We enjoyed everything. We worked together fantastically well. The whole trip, we were there for 3 weeks. And it was all wonderful. I don't know if we ever got in a single argument about what we were going to do, where we were going to do it. And she was being the tour guide because she'd lived there for a year. And yet I've been with other relatives where I love them to death, but boy, day 2, you're like, oh man, this is a pain. You can find out a lot about whether you really want to be with somebody forever if you can travel with them. So there you go. So if you're thinking, is she the one or is he the one? Go on a trip for for a few days and see if you're still together when you get back. That's a good litmus test.
Well, or more importantly, go on a group trip, because if you go with them just by themselves, it could be uncomfortable. The the nice thing about the group trip is yes, you certainly can, if you're seeing someone bring somebody that's important to you, but you can also just go on a fun trip, see different places, and not feel like I have to try to drag some of my friends who may or may not be married and can't get the time or can't get them to go. I want to go to this fun, interesting place around the world, but there's a lot of people who don't want to travel to certain places that they don't speak the language by themselves. And being in a group to be that is not only has taken care of all the details and programs for you, but also has the local guides that know the culture and the community information and aspect to it, and can get you into those secret behind the scenes kind of backdoor activities of seeing elements of the city or country that it's just not where most tourists go.
Or even booking in advance, right? I mean, I hear all the time about the Japan trip, where we get in those Super Mario Kart cars in downtown Japan or downtown Tokyo, and we're driving around in those things, and people see us and they're like, "That looks so cool, I want to do that." Well, they've been booked for 3 months. You can't get booked in those things.
And even to that point, those street legal go-karts in Tokyo, you can't just show up, even if you had a reservation a month in advance without an international driver's license. And we work with the members to say, okay, we're going to go on this trip. For those who are interested in doing this, let's walk you through the steps to get you so that you're prepared for that when you get there. And it's not, like you were saying, not an afterthought. Oh, gosh, I really want to go do that. We take care of the steps to make certain that you're ready to do it when you get there. And that's even true for visas or things like that. Some parts of the world, visas are amazingly easy, and some places they are complicated. And we work with you on all of that.
100%. I know your idea that we've implemented, where we do a Zoom call every month, once a month, coming up to one of those trips, I think is absolutely fantastic, because the members get to find out everything that's going on. They get to meet and talk to everybody, and you're going, hey, give us your passport, because I know we had that one part really early on where somebody didn't get to go on a trip because they thought their passport was fine, and it expired 3 days before the trip was over. They couldn't even leave LA, right? And we check all of that for you now. So if you've never been on a trip before, we're going to be able to handhold you on that and say, hey, send us a copy of your passport. We're going to check and make sure it's valid the whole length of our trip and all the countries we're going to make sure that you can get there and you can come back and you can be safe.
And we often will have scenarios like in Jordan where we can do a group visa for everyone. It saves you a couple of bucks on the visa process, so it's cheaper for you, and it allows our group to move quicker through that airport because we've already done the process, and we will work those things out. Well, like I was saying, some places the visa is so easy. In Egypt, you land, go to a kiosk, pay them $20, and they stamp your passport. That's the visa. And
really?
Yeah, it's so.
Where's that? I didn't hear the city.
That was in Cairo, in Egypt.
Oh wow!
But places like Brazil or China, it can be a very complicated process. Brazil, after the Olympics, did change some policies, but there can be where you have to send your passport off in advance. Has to fit a couple of very strict regulations. It can be a process, and it can make people not want to travel. But by having a group that knows what is happening and can walk you through that really makes the process much more comfortable.
Or even, I know you give the advice and help people getting their passport originally here, in the United States or Canada if they've never had one, or getting it renewed. Because if it can take a long time to get your passport renewed in the States. If you don't.
And the U.S. just came out with a new program for renewing your passports. Things that if you're not doing travel, if you're not working on travel daily like we do here, that might be information you're not familiar with. And there's just so much that changes in the world, even if it's a location you've been to. One of my goals when it comes to travel is I imagine if we're going to a particular place, I imagine some of our members who have gone there in the past. And my goal is, how can I make it so you go, wow, I've been there, but I didn't get to do this and this and this. I want to go back. And that's my goal when we're putting together trips is how can I make this to be something that even if you've been there once before, you want to go back.
Well, we've been going for almost an hour, and I've got another thing I got to go to. But for anybody that was looking, Curtis came in at the last minute here, and he's a little bit under the weather. But you don't feel under the weather, Curtis. You feel great. You feel chipper. Your hair looks good. So
I do need a haircut, but that's fine.
Well, I think we're going to start doing these for every trip that comes out. It won't be quite this long, but we're going to start doing a podcast for every trip and posting it so the members, if they're looking at going, can look that up and see it.
Sure. So one of the things we started with the last trip we opened, which was our Scandinavia trip, is trying to give members a value and a discount beyond the great deal of the trip itself. So if for both Iceland and for our Scandinavia trip, when we open those, we said the first 10 people that sign up can get $200 off of that trip. First 10 people or within the first 2 weeks, whichever comes first. And then after that, for the first month that trip is open, there is $100 off the cost of the trip. And then after that point, it's our regular good value program. For our Iceland trip, we also have, and we know that there are some members who are like, hey, I've got friends that are in the airline business, or I used to work in the airline business, and I want to make my own flight over to Iceland rather than meet the group in the airport that we're leaving the U.S. from. So we do have pricing from the saving the $200 and going with the group, or saving the $200 and doing your own flight. And we have saving the $100 if you sign up after those first 10 people or folks. So so if you're in that first 10 people to sign up for the Iceland trip, and you're going with the group with our international air, it's $55.39, and that includes obviously the international air. It includes all of the hotels. It includes the ground transportation. It includes all of the activities that we're doing on those trips, all of the entrance into the Blue Lagoon, the thermal pools, the caves of Hela, the hiking experience, all of that stuff that we're doing is all included and it includes our local guides as well. So if you're doing that with your own air, it's $48.40.
There you go.
And then they just are adjusted by $100 or not for the next category.
Yeah, that's actually a question some people have if they've like worked for the airlines and they have all this ability to fly for free places. They can contact you directly, and sometimes we can make a deal that way and get them, and sometimes we can't, right? Sometimes it's kind of an all-in price where we're not able to do that, but we do it every chance we get.
Absolutely. The majority of our trips, we do have a land package available if people want to just do that. The times we don't, it's really scenarios that may involve the location, or our Easter Island trip, which is pretty close to being full. If somebody wants in, I might be able to squeeze to get one more in, and that's coming up in March. That trip, there's only one airline that goes from South America to Easter Island, and to be able to make certain that you're on the group flight and you don't show up a day later and mess up the time schedule that we're out on Easter Island, you really pretty much have to be on our program. So there are some trips where we're going to really narrow that possibility of doing that.
Yeah.
Not an absolute not going to happen, but it's going to be not the standard path.
I mean, you can get stuck on Easter Island. That already happened. That's why those things are there, right? They got stuck on Easter Island. So you don't want to be that. You don't want to, every time someone gets stuck on Easter Island, they make one of those big statues, those big stone things. No.
Bum.
That would do it. You can put your picture on it. Next. So there you go. But anyway, thanks, Curtis, for being on this. And I'll cut this up in a couple of different things. But thanks, Curtis, for being with us. And you're always been one of my favorite employees at Events and Adventures. I think you're the longest tenured employee, right? 18
I
years?
think so. I think Reed and Eric are two folks that are right on my tail.
There you go. And if you really want a good laugh, guys, Curtis is only like 4 years younger than me. Look, he looks like he's 20 years younger than me.
Well, part of it is that you can't see my gray. You can't see my gray hair when it's still wet or have product in it.
Oh, see, there you go. There you go. Maybe I need to do some of that. But the guy's always in great shape. Always looks good. And
And I attribute it to travel.
Right. And you're the biggest reason that our travel program is what it is. You made it this amazing thing over this period of time. So anyway, Curtis, thanks a bunch. And we'll talk to you soon.
See you, everybody.